What's up, guys, and welcome back to Bass Fishing Tips. And in today's video, we're going to be talking about the top 5 baits for the month of September. Now, I love September bass fishing. I love fall fishing in general, but September in particular is full of so many awesome memories for me in my bass fishing world. From catching giant bass, literally 2 years ago, almost broke the state record spotted bass in Tennessee in the month of September, to just memories with friends and family, and especially my dad. He's passed on now, but some of my favorite memories with him are getting up early on a Saturday morning, heading towards the lake, cracking a bag before noon, getting off the water and getting back home right before the Vols kicked off, and eating a bowl of chili. And so it's just such a great time of year for me, full of so many awesome memories. And so we're going to have fun today because we're going to talk about some of the funnest ways to catch fish, in my opinion, and the ones that have helped me, like I said, to catch some truly giant bass. Now, before we get into that, I want to talk about the giveaways. So people are not claiming giveaway prizes. I'm commenting back to people, and people are not commenting back to me, not giving me their information. And so the way that I'm going to start running the giveaways now is, instead of announcing the winner or commenting back to the winner on the previous month's video, I'm just going to announce the winner in the next month's video. So the winner for this month will be announced in October, the winner for October, November, so on and so forth. So that just gives you guys not only a starting point as soon as the video launches, you guys have a chance to enter until the end of the month, but also gives us a ending point as well, so that we'll know, hey, you've got to come back to the next month's video to find out whether you've won or not, and then obviously get the information for the next month. And so last month's winner is Pig Sticker 151. Again, Pig Sticker 151. It's a hell of a username, my friend. Make sure you email me, alexforfishing@gmail.com. I need your full name, your address, your blood type, and your social security. I'm just kidding. I just need your full name and your address. If you'll email me those things, I'll get your prize pack out to you. So without any further ado, let's get into today's video, and let's start with bait or technique number 1, and that is going to be the old punch rig. I love punching this time of year. I love punching in general, but punching in September can be really, really special, because a lot of the times in September in particular, not as many bass have moved into a lot of that vegetation, especially that thicker vegetation that we'll normally be punching this time of year. Because what you'll oftentimes see is you'll have that emergent vegetation, the vegetation that's come up, it's topped out, you've got those cheese mats, but then sometimes you'll have that kind of pre-emergent vegetation. It's not completely out of the water yet. You've got kind of those submerged mats that start to form, and you have those big clumps of grass. And oftentimes when you're punching that sort of stuff, you're not going to get very many bites, but you're going to get really big bites when you do. Great example was a couple weeks ago, or last week, I think. I was on Lake Gunnersville, and in like a 100-yard stretch, we caught almost 22 pounds of largemouth bass punching those those emergent grass mats. They hadn't completely topped out yet. They were right under the surface, still really densely clumped, and that's where those big largemouth wanted to be living. And so punching is such an effective tool this time of year. Now, I actually mix up the punch rig just a little bit. Still going big weight, big straight shank hook, pegging that on the braid and all that kind of stuff. Normally anywhere from an ounce to an ounce and a half weight to get through the tops of those matted vegetations and those different kinds of grass. But I actually mix up the bait just a little bit. Normally I punch the stink bug, but in September I've noticed a little bit bigger profile helps me to get those little bit bigger bites, and so I'll normally pick up something like the Pit Boss. Now, this is still a great bait for punching and flipping and pitching. It's just an awesome little creature bait, but what's different about it is it's just a little bit bulkier. You've got multiple legs on there. You've got a little bit thicker body and just an overall bigger profile. And like I said, I tend to get bigger bites punching this bait over something like a stink bug or a crash crawl or something like that. I mean, we want to be compact, and you can still be very compact with the Pit Boss, but giving them just a little bit bigger presentation can oftentimes get those bigger fish to bite. And then this is also another color that I absolutely love. This is called Perfection. Perfection Blue Flake, actually. And it's such a unique little color. It's one I discovered a couple years ago and started just flipping and pitching and punching with it. And as you guys can see, it's got like that orange back with that blue flake top. And what I've noticed is it does a really good job of mimicking a lot of different sunfish species, especially like pumpkin seeds and stuff like that. And I've seen times when I've caught big bass with pumpkin seeds in the back of their throat, especially out of grass mats. Started using this color and started getting a bunch of bites. But love love punching this time of year just because it can produce some really, really big bites. Now, I want to go over my punching setup really quick, and we actually did a video on this a couple days ago. I'll make sure to link it down below so you guys can check it out. But we're going with a 711 heavy flipping stick. We got 65-pound straight braid, and then a 7 to 9 gear ratio reel. This is actually a 9 gear ratio reel. And a lot of people are thinking, like, why such big equipment? You know, we're not fishing for sharks, and we're not. But a lot of the times when we're dealing with bass, especially in grass, they are going to have an advantage on you immediately. And so the more leverage that you have and the better that you can clear those bass away from those grass, the more chance that you've got actually getting them into the boat. And so the 711 stick simply gives you leverage on the fish. I'm a bigger guy, and so when you put a really big rod in my hands, make a joke out of that if you want to. I'm a really big guy, so when you put a really big rod in my hands, I've got a lot more leverage over those fish than they have leverage on me. And when you're trying to bring them out of those grass mats, that is important. And then the braid, 65-pound braid. Again, it's not because we need 65-pound breaking strength, but the diameter of that braid really does a good job of cutting through that vegetation, clearing that vegetation, and thus being able to get those bass out of there and get them into the boat, the bank, or the kayak, or wherever you guys happen to be fishing. So pick you up a punching stick. Don't be scared of it. It's really, really fun. And it's a technique that, again, a lot of people seem to be intimidated by, but if you can get it dialed in, and again, I want to link that video that I did because I think it's a really important video to help you guys learn. If you can get it dialed in, you guys can catch some giant fish. All right, bait number 2 is going to be another grass fishing bait, but it can also be an open water fishing bait, and it is my favorite way to catch a bass, and that is the hollow body frog. I have cracked some bags with the hollow body frog this time of year, both in the matted vegetation and in open water. One of the biggest bass that I caught last year was a 7.5 pounder. I caught actually in open water during a little bit of a flood. The lake had flooded out, the water was up in the trees, up on the banks, and there was a ton of bait fish that had pushed up with the water because there was already bait fish up because that fall weather's starting to set in. Those fish are starting to do this kind of fall time patterns. And the only way that I could get something in there to them was something like a hollow body frog, and just was cracking big fish on this thing. And then the water went down, the bait fish moved back out into the matted vegetation, and I was able to pick this thing up and go get some bites there as well. But whether you're dealing with, you know, a pond that gets choked out by weeds, pond scum, duckweed, whatever it is, any kind of aquatic vegetation, or even if you're just dealing with a pond that's got a lot of overhangs and you want something that you can present to those bass on top of the water where normally they might not see a topwater lure, the frog is going to be the deal. Now, I'm using just your traditional walking style frog. This is a Berkeley Swamp Lord. And because really I'm looking, number one, I want to come across matted vegetation or any sort of vegetation really, really well. That pointed nose or that walking style frog is going to be the best to do that, because the cup on the front of those popping frogs is going to catch on that vegetation. And then number two, I love to walk the frog. This is something I've talked about on this channel before. And so that little pointed nose really helps me to walk the frog on this thing. And then if you are in open water and you add just a little bit of pop, a little bit of splash, you can go with that popping frog and it'll help you to catch some fish. And then this time of year, I'm going to be focusing primarily on shad patterns. And the reason for that is because there's a lot of shad in my lakes that move up shallow, and bass focus in on those shad. Now, if you're in a lake that's full of bluegill, or you're in a pond that's full of bluegill, just switch up to a bluegill color. I think a lot of the times bass, they may or may not care. There's some people believe they do, some people believe they don't. I live in a very pressured area of the country, and so I believe colors matter a lot more here than they do in other places. And so I've noticed, like, dialing in something like that frog in particular. I mean, you guys can see it's all chewed up. The eyes are about dang near gone off of it. It's got, you know, stuff hanging off of it. But that white with that red, that contrast right there, really seems to get a ton of bites this time of year, where a straight white will still get bites, but the white with the red, the contrast there, seems to get just a few more bites. And honestly, when you're tournament fishing or even when you're fun fishing, just getting a few extra bites could be the difference between having a really sucky day or a really good day. And so I focus on colors a little bit. But the frog, ladies and gentlemen, I love the frog. You can see, look at the bottom of that thing. It's all tore to hell. I love it. Absolutely love it. All right, bait number 3 is going to be, well, bait 3 and 4, we're going to be talking about a lot of topwaters because topwater is about to start playing. But bait number 3 is going to be the old buzzbait. Absolutely love the buzzbait this time of year, and in particular a head knocking buzzbait. I love that extra sound that head knocker is going to have. The reason for that is this time of year, all throughout the country, not just here where I'm at, you're going to have a ton of bait fish moving up shallow, whether it be shad or bluegill or whatever it is. And I really believe that there's two things that you're mimicking when you're throwing some sort of chopping or plopping or buzzing topwater. Number one is going to be those glass minnows. I noticed this a couple years back, that glass minnows jumping and glass minnows kind of scurrying away from something looks exactly like when you throw water off of a buzzbait or a Chapo style bait. And when I really started to dial that in and started to throw this bait more, I started to get bigger and better and more bites on so many of these bodies of water where I was struggling to mimic those little bitty bait fish. The second thing is, I think you've got to be loud, and I think you got to be super intrusive, because there is just this giant inundation of shad up shallow. And so with all those shad up there, you're gonna have to do something to stand out in the masses. And I think that head knocking buzzbait is one of the best ways to do it. So I absolutely love throwing the head knocker. I also love throwing the head knocker because I love fishing current a lot this time of year. Normally you will find me up some creek in my kayak or up some river in my kayak bumping off rocks trying to catch big smallmouth and big largemouth that live up there. And so when you're in that moving water, I think you're already giving them a moving target. And so adding in a little bit of extra sound like that head knocker on the front of that buzzbait can help them just to really pinpoint in on that thing and make a more accurate bite on that bait, which is interesting. I got a whole video planned talking about a segment of knowing bass in topwater strikes. Very, very interesting. So if you want to see that, make sure and comment down below. But I love the head knocking buzzbait. And then as always, running that Berkeley crash crawl on the back. I actually stripped the skirt almost off every single one of my buzzbaits and just run a plastic on the back. I found a couple things. Number one, it helps to plane that buzzbait out more when it's in the water. So like that flatter bottom on that crash crawl, as you guys can see, it's a flat, wide profile. Helps to plane that buzzbait out and make it to run straight. And then number two, it helps you to skip this thing really, really easy. So if you're skipping around docks, up under overhangs or whatever it is, it just makes it easier to do that. But absolutely love throwing the buzzbait this time of year. Now the second or the fourth bait, and on that same kind of plane of thought, is going to be, in my opinion, one of the most overlooked but deadly baits this time of year. And this is one that I have won tournaments with, and I have effectively caught bigger and better fish than most people will on some of the toughest bodies of water around me, and that is the Chapo. And not just any Chapo, a 120 size Chapo, the big boy, the biggest one that you can get. This thing is so deadly around those young of the year, those little glass minnows. And a lot of people don't know this. Glass minnows aren't actually a species of minnow. There are small, obviously small little minnows that exist, but most of the glass minnows that you see are actually young of the year threadfin that were spawned during the shad spawn. So keep that in mind. But there's not many things that do a good job of mimicking those, and oftentimes when bass are focused in on those, it can be really, really, really hard to get a bite. And what I have found is that the 120 size Chapo does the best job of throwing water in a way that looks like glass minnows. And when those glass minnows are up shallow, or when you have just a ton of bait fish up shallow, especially small bait fish, throwing the biggest Chapo possible has been the most deadly tool for me to get bites. And when I say like deadly, I'm talking toughest lakes around me. Like no joke, people go out there, they call it the Dead Sea, they just complain about how hard it is to actually catch fish. I go and I throw this thing and I catch fish. And that's not just here. I've done that all throughout the country. Like I've gone to Middle Tennessee and done it on a lake that I'd never fished before. I actually ended up catching a really big limit in a tournament that we fished out there. Take it down to North Alabama, take it, up north, and do it up there as well. There's just something about the way that Chapo throws water that gets those big bass to bite when they don't seem to want to bite anything else. Now, another thing that I focus on is really, really hard shade lines. Now, I actually, this is kind of funny because so many techniques, we want to get up as early as we can. We want to get to the lake. We want to try to get on that early morning bite. But with this Chapo, what I've noticed is a lot of those bait fish move up in the middle of the day, and then they'll go seek out shade. And you'll have these like wolf packs of bass that are just cruising the bank, essentially hunting these bait fish, and they'll use those hard shade lines as ambush points and as something to be able to take advantage of those bait fish. And so if you can get accurate with casting and you can get this bait up under those shade lines and just plop that thing out, steady retrieve, don't stop it, don't hesitate with it, you'll have so many of those big bass, especially when they're in a wolf pack, that will just come unglued on this thing. And that's one of the funnest things, is when you're working this thing out from the bank and you got like 4 or 5 big smallmouth or big largemouth that are all fighting over it, and then one finally decides to just absolutely crush it. It is one of the most incredible bites that you will get on all year long, and I absolutely love it. Now, when it comes to colors, I honestly mix it up. I've got a straight black in my hands right now. This is called Maverick. But 2 of my other favorite colors is just a straight bone or trout. And I've noticed that this time of year that sometimes it matters and sometimes it doesn't. I've seen days when they really, really are on the Maverick or the bone in particular. And then I've seen days where I'll get one hung in a tree or blow one up on a dock post because I'm trying to throw it too close to something and tie on a completely different color, and they'll just crush that color just as hard. And it's more about the sound profile and the actual action of the lure versus the color. And then I've seen days when they want like a particular color. Last year, it was chrome. They got on a chrome deal, and I could not get them to effectively bite any other color than chrome. And what I meant by that is like they would follow it and just wouldn't eat it. Tie on a chrome, you would go in there, you would throw it, and they would smash it. And I think a lot of it has to do with big macro factors, with the weather, with the light penetration, all those things. Like last year was a very sunny year, very dry, not a ton of rain until later fall. And so I think that early fall choppo bite, because of all that sun, the chrome did really, really well. Where the year before that, it was a bone and a black. And it was because we had a lot of rain, it was just a wetter fall, and because there wasn't as much light penetration, those more solid colors did really, really well. And so have a couple in your arsenal, but just make sure it's that big one. You want that 120 size. And I'll be honest, for me, I have tried the 110, I've tried the 90, I've tried the 75, I've tried so many different sizes, and I've actually fished behind guys throwing smaller choppos and whopper ploppers, and I throw the big 120 and I get bites and they don't. There's something about this size, this sound profile, this plop that gets bites when nothing else will. And so pick this thing up and start throwing it right now, and I can promise you'll get some of the most violent, just epic bites that you will see all year long. All right, so before we get into the last bait for today, I want to tell you guys how to enter the giveaway. So it's really, really simple. It's the same thing every single month. You just got to be subscribed to this channel, you got to like this video, and you got to leave a comment down below of your favorite bait for the month of September. And if you're brand new to bass fishing, tell me the bait that you're looking forward to the most to throwing. And then come back next month so that hopefully you can claim your prize. Please come back, because I love giving stuff away, but I can't give it away if nobody will claim it. So we'll see you guys next month. Now, the next bait is going to be a bait that literally just yesterday went and caught fish on it, and this will be a bait that I keep locked in my hand almost all fall long, especially into deep fall, but starts working right now, and it's a bait that'll probably make a reoccurrence very, very soon. And actually I have a plan for a video on this particular bait, talking about how to use it in the fall specifically, and where I've seen it just use the best and get the biggest bites, and that is going to be the bladed jig. Absolutely love throwing the bladed jig this time of year, in particular the slobber knocker. I've fished them all, guys. I've got JDM bladed jigs you've never heard about, I've got jackhammers, I've got them all, and the slobber knocker to me has just become my #1 bladed jig for a lot of reasons. Number one, I fish a lot of current. It does really, really well in current, and that's really the main thing. But love throwing a bladed jig this time of year, whether it be lakes, streams, rivers, creeks, ponds, it doesn't matter. When you've got a ton of bait fish up shallow, when you've got bass that are focused in on big bait fish, small bait fish, medium-sized bait fish, it doesn't matter, even bluegills, a bladed jig is going to do a really good job of effectively catching those bass, as well as be a really good tool for when you've got that broke up vegetation. You got emergent vegetation. One of the best tools to use to be able to fish subsurface while not getting all marred up in it is going to be the bladed jig. Now, one thing that I do this time of year is I start fishing a full-size fluke style bait or soft jerk bait style bait on the back. The reason for that is I've noticed this time of year, when you are dealing with bass that aren't, focusing in on those. Well, there we got the buzzbait with it. When they're not focusing in on stuff like that, they're focusing on those glass minnows. A lot of the times they're going to seem to want to eat the biggest thing that they can. And I don't know if that's a fall time thing, or if they know it's about to get cold and they just get a little bit more conservative with their energy, or if their energy starts to ramp up and they're just trying to kill everything that they can. But I've noticed that little bit bigger profile tends to get the bigger bite. Now, I've fished the power stinger on the back. I've fished the multiple options that we've talked about on this channel on the back. But for me, just big bite wise, the full size soft jerk bait seems to be the deal. And then as for colors, chartreuse with a gold blade. Chartreuse white with a gold blade this time of year absolutely kills. From clear water to dirty water to grass to everything else in between, that is the one color that I pick up that seems to absolutely smash this time of year. It's really, really interesting how they switch off of the white and switch on to the white chartreuse. And it's interesting because, you know, there's a lot of studies that have been done that say bass see chartreuse and white as a very similar color, but there's obviously something to that color profile that makes those fish bite just a little bit better. And I've also noticed it with the gold blade as well. I fished a white and chartreuse with a silver blade, and again, had my teeth kicked in with somebody fishing a gold blade. There's something about something. I have a theory, and it may be crazy, but it's a theory. I think it's the way the sun actually gets lower in the sky. You know, as we move into fall, the sun's going to get lower in the sky. The light penetration just starts to differ, and everything starts to look different. You know what I'm talking about, that fall look. And that all has to do with the angle of the sun, the angle of the earth, and you know, how the sunlight's actually hitting the earth. And I've just noticed both with my buzz baits, with my slobber knockers, with spinner baits, that those gold blades start to do better and better as we get into the fall. And so there's something to that. I don't know exactly what it is, but it's something that I've noticed, and it's something that I tend to get bigger bites by picking up that gold blade, a golden, you know, white and chartreuse or something like that. There's another color in the slobber knocker. It's actually a gold blade with a little bit of gold in the skirt. That one does really good this time of year, but just absolutely love throwing the bladed jig because it's so versatile. Literally, this is in anywhere, anytime, any part of the country's tile of bait, they'll absolutely get just crushed by big ones. And so, yeah, that's my top baits for the month of September. Make sure and enter the giveaway. If you enjoyed this video, either click one of the videos down below in the description that goes with some of the stuff we talked about, or click this video that's popping up right here.